I think this is the incredible thing with these amazing women, is that they are these radiant fires who have learned how to express, how to emote, how to feel, how to have all these sensitivities.
Sam Pelly is widely acclaimed as an esteemed society photographer, renowned for his exceptional eye and unwavering dedication to the art of photography.
If we just do this little bit of work now, it has the capacity to change generations.
Sam talks about the emotional challenges of boarding school and how it affected his adult life.
I've been to some of the poorest communities in the world, and I see a richness there that is so devoid from the world that I was raised in.
His journey led to embracing his truth, transformative personal growth for him and those around him.
She says, I know where all this energy is coming from. I feel like I've got a whole new lease of life coming through me.
He is redefining success, not by wealth or societal standards, but by living authentically and embracing self-love.
And I just sense if we don't do this work, and don't do this work, that they will feel as though their children leave them behind.
All this and more on the Privileged Man podcast.
Welcome to the Privileged Man podcast.
Thanks, Pete.
How are you feeling?
I am feeling excited. I'm feeling tender, a little nervous, all the little aspects of me. But it's great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So to give some context, Sam and I share a godmother. We haven't seen each other for 35 years. And we put in touch by a mutual friend of ours. And when we were put back in touch, it became really clear that actually we had a lot of shared experiences in terms of the journey that we had been on. It was just an obvious choice to get you here and get you on the podcast and to have an open, frank, honest, trusting discussion about life and your journey. So I guess we'll start off in that time zone of when we were physically playing around as kids together. And I'd just ask your experience of your childhood.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a pretty idyllic way. I mean, we had this wonderful small holding in Kent, some 35 acres. I mean, it was a large small holding. And we had everything there. We had swimming pool and tennis court. We had ponies. We had motorbikes. You know, it was very safe. Mum and Dad were very much present there. You know, felt very, very loved in those very early years. So it was an idyllic place to really grow up.
What ways did you find that?
We're talking about the really young years. I know my mother, all she'd ever wanted was to have children. And so when I came along, her son, her firstborn, I think I was everything to her. I was absolutely cherished and adored. And I feel the frequency of that now. You know, I have a very special relationship with my mother, and I know I've always felt that frequency, always.
And from your dad?
Yeah, I think that frequency was there as well, that loving frequency. He's a very loving man, a very kind, generous, loving man. And I look at photographs when I was younger, and I look at the look of love he has towards me, holding me in his arms. And I've got just a handful of photographs, and each one he's smiling with such radiant pride. So
Sweet.
Those early formative years, you know, up to sort of 4.
Did you feel any father figure of being the older of 3 boys, your brothers Guy and Jamie?
Did I feel like a father figure in a sense? What, in that time or in
your childhood?
In my childhood. It's interesting. I don't know that I did. I think when Jamie came along a couple of years later, so I'd have only been 2, and then it was a slight irritation. I'd been this worshipped and adored thing for 2 years, and suddenly this heavenly looking little creature. I mean, he was tiny. He was born very, very small. He was this, you know, and he was just this adorable little creature. And he was like that all the way through, like in those early years, it was like could do no wrong. And that just got more and more annoying. And it was like a spotlight on all the things I was feeling and all my naughtiness and all my kind of stuff that was coming through. So that was kind of an amplified thing that I had through my childhood. And I just wanted to throttle him.
So then there was Jamie, and then there's Guy came along, and then you were the one of three as opposed to one of one. Do you remember? You remember that about Jamie? Do you remember that about Guy as well?
Guy was kind of almost a relief. He was so adored when he came along because we were a little bit older, and suddenly, I mean, I was 7, Jamie would have been 5, but suddenly we had this little baby brother, and we just adored him and worshipped him. He was so deeply loved by all of us, and it was just great fun. And I definitely felt more of a father figure with Guy. You know, I remember teaching him how to rugby tackle. And I was quite tall at that stage, and he was tiny, and he was gripping on for dear life, and I was running along. He was just being dragged along, and I kept saying, "Get your feet in the ground, push me over, come on." You know, I've wanted to teach him things, and I really saw a sort of responsibility in that. But
Love it.
But I was amazed by him, and I really loved him. I used to go and sing him nursery rhymes every night, and yeah.
Obviously, being a third child and being the youngest of 3, to me it was like having 3 mothers, having 2 older sisters. I mean, but to him it must have been like having sort of 3 dads. It's a fortunate position to be the youngest in many different ways. But just talking around that identity a little bit, when down in Seaview, where we're recording this on the Isle of Wight, I had free reign for about 35 years of my life. I was known as Pete Hunt. I had my own identity. I brought my wife down here. She started doing yoga on the beach. And suddenly, within 1 year, I was known as Joe Hunt's husband. I'd lost the fact that I was Pete Hunt. Everyone started calling me Joe Hunt. Oh, that's Joe Hunt's husband. Oh, you're Yoga Joe's husband. In the sense of, you were Sam Pelly, you know, going out up until what year do you remember first being called potentially Guy Pelly's brother?
Well, it was more in the media when I was doing something great, what I was perceived as some great creative act or some business I was launching, and I got the press to write about something. It would always start as, you know, Sam, brother of Guy. I was like, great. That makes me feel really big. So it was.
But how did it make you feel? That's really what I'm getting at. How did that make you feel?
It's interesting because it was only really since we started talking a little bit about it that I kind of noticed it. I mean, I guess it is. I guess it plays into a bit of a story for me around this feeling of lack that I've probably always carried, if the truth be known, and so in a way I was probably quite comfortable with it. And just recently I've started to turn a spotlight on that a bit and go, hang on, you know, what is this underplaying role that you have? What's this selling yourself short? And it's something that I'm becoming quite aware of has been something in my story.
Yeah. And where do you think that did come from? Have you worked that one out yet?
Oh, I've looked at it, you know, I've looked at that and many aspects of these feelings of restraint and lack and shame and all of this over many years. You know, it's been my greatest work, really. I think it was in the way I was suppressed as I started to have expression and emotion, probably around the age of 5. I was feeling a lot, and I wanted to express, and it didn't seem to be allowed, that expression, those emotions, because, you know, my elders didn't know how to express that either. So it was, my mum had 3 older brothers. She's of that time, that period. It's the same old story. They were doing their best and loving as much as they could, but it still, to me, it felt very, very narrow. And I could feel it in my bones at a very young age. And this sort of anger came through, and this frustration, and this eventually anxiety, and all sorts of things came through. And I think Jamie was this sort of idyllic, perfect little, he just seemed protected by me. And he spoke about this later in life, that he always felt protected by me. And then the moment I was sent to boarding school at 8, it just suddenly, his alarm bells went off for him. He's really opened up about that to me later on in life, which was really interesting. I'd never seen myself as that to him, like this father figure, or this protective older brother.
And so how was that, going to boarding school at 8?
Well, there was a sense of expectation that is what you do, and that how proud we are of you, and, the eldest son, and heading off and putting the uniform on and all this stuff. But I just remember feeling absolutely, terrified. And I remember noticing how my mum was feeling. She was putting on a brave face, but I could just feel the energy around, and it was so alarming and so scary. And yeah, that moment being when my parents went, and I was suddenly in this unfamiliar structure with all these unfamiliar boys some were crying, others were all putting on this brave face, and we were all I could feel the tremorous anxiety in the whole collective.
Yeah.
It's too young to be sent away.
I don't think there are many people who'd argue with that nowadays. It's, yeah. And did you feel that sense of terror, fear, maybe even a slight sense of privileged abandonment, as Nick Duffel says? Is that something that you sense that you've carried with you into adulthood?
I think that abandoning of myself is something that I really did, and how the culture and the society that I was raised in abandoned me. So it's this interest with the inner and outer journey, really, and they both go hand in hand. I think it's important to also say I was of quite a positive disposition, and I was so it wasn't like I was gripped in absolute fear, and that was an aspect of me. I think I was able to enjoy the fact there were all these boys my age, and I think I was able to actually, prep school was quite a relatively happy time for me. I got a lot of friends from that time, and we were all in it together. And there was something in that collective which was interesting. And we just had our first reunion just recently, and it was so beautiful. The instant, having not seen each other for 40 years, there was something very powerful about that reunion.
Well, there's that element of shared experience and that sort of knowing look, right? It's in that sense of, as you just said, we got through it together. I think boarding is a completely different story now, with phones and access to parents and weekly boarding or flexi boarding and all the rest of it. I personally, the people who would disagree with me, personally, I think it's a completely different story to what we went through in the 80s and 90s and people before that in the 60s, 70s. So,
but I can speak into fairly recently feeling that really in such a visceral, powerful way, this sense of abandonment, which was, my divorce. And, we suddenly made a decision that actually we might be best apart. And within 2 weeks, my ex, she was quite firm on it. She wanted me out of the house. And I remember being in an unfamiliar cottage and feeling for about 8 months, 7 months, probably a year, feeling these feelings of utter terror, especially at night in the silence. And I didn't have my daughter's sounds around, and I was on my own, and in the darkness and the blackness. Luckily, I've learned how to resource myself over the years, and I can bring in that curiosity to all these pains and things I feel now. But it was this immense feeling of like overwhelm and just this dreadful feelings. I was like, what is this? What is this? What are these feelings? And I thought, they're horrific, but I recognize these feelings. I know these feelings. And after a while, I was like, where do I know these feelings from? And then this little voice said, this is me, aged 8. I'm here. This is what I felt like. And that voice came through very loud and clear. And it said, we're not good enough again. We've been sent away again. We don't like it here. It's dark. It's cold. We're alone. We don't know these people. This feels unsafe. This is scary. When I was able to meet that voice and just go, hello, little guy. Okay. Hello. And it was like, who are you? Speak some more. And then just listening to that each morning and then going, okay, can we be with this feeling? And then we sort of agreed we could be together. And he was like, yeah, this adult voice in me, or this beautiful parent voice came through. And it was like, so actually we were able to integrate that.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And I love you saying hello to that feeling, because that's the feeling. In my experience, talking to lots of men who've been to boarding school, were sent at 7 or 8. That's the feeling that was suppressed.
And we don't know how to deal with these feelings or these emotions, because we don't have any vocabulary. We have nothing in us to meet those expressions. And if they're a little bit more than we're used to, we're like, whoa, this is way too much. This is unsafe. Let's go to the pub. Let's knock this out. Let's put on porn. Let's, watch TV. Let's disassociate from this, because this is like, whoa, this is too much emotion. That's why we can't meet our women in their expressions, because we go, no, whoa, what is all this? No, quickly, let's fix this. I don't know. I can't be in all that expression. That fires too much.
If you look back at the separation with Susie, is that what was a constant trigger for her as well? That was for you acting out, the behavior acting out like that?
I think for whatever reason, Susie had to really protect herself. So she actually was very guarded. And yes, I think she didn't feel safe with me. Because I think I was in quite a little boy state. I didn't know how to parent myself, these voices of the child, the child within me, which were pretty expressive. So I think we had quite an interesting story, in that we both recognized when we met each other that we were going to bring up all the shadows within one another. And a lot of my friends said, why are you with, this doesn't look like this is going to be much fun. But I think I just got to a place where I wanted to grow up, and Susie and I certainly brought up, and we pulled our socks up, and I certainly pulled my socks up in lots of areas with her and met her in lots of areas. But I think it was hard work, and we didn't have that sweet tenderness where she felt safe with me and I felt loved by her and met. There's that sort of meeting, and I just don't think we quite managed to cultivate that.
Yeah, I had my first fiance, and I look back now with immense gratitude. There is no way I would have met myself the way that I did if she hadn't poured that all out in me in the most ferocious, toxic way. I think trauma is an overused word, but let's call it some trauma. And all of my insecurities, unworthiness, complete lack of awareness, threw itself into that relationship. And it came out in sort of very violent, emotionally and mentally, patterns. And it didn't work. But what did work was the fact that she did throw me into a place where I was just like, I need to work out where that all came from, because I am going to take that into any relationship I have going forward. And so I'm very grateful for it. I just wonder how you've resolved, because there's a sense of calm around you. And you said to me offline again that your daughters are really well adjusted and are wonderful teenage girls. So yeah, I'm just sort of putting it back to you. So how you feel about the whole separation and how you feel about Susie now?
I think the separation was a very courageous move, and I know in the moment we made that decision, that was truth. We're done. Our agreement's over. We can free each other, and it was so simple. We just both knew it. It's been really hard ever since. It's because we're then meeting all these screaming little children within us. Both of us have, around abandonment, around all these voices coming screaming to the surface, and the ego and all of this. So it's been hard. I think any separation, any divorce is hard, even if it was done in a relatively calm way, like Susie and I in the initial stages. But I look at her with such appreciation and such honoring of our union, because that was our agreement. And it's like, I recognized she was going to be the mother of my children. I recognized this very intelligent, interesting, curious woman who had done clearly some deep work on herself. And she was living in harmony with nature out in the wilds of Ireland, and raising a small child who was my stepdaughter, the borrowed one, who I then told her that she was firmly mine, aged 5 or 6. She was no longer the borrowed one. But the journey that I went on with those two women, both Mello and Susie, was incredible journey of noticing all those edges like you talk about. I think this is the incredible thing with these amazing women, is that they are these radiant fires who have learned how to express, how to emote, how to feel, how to have all these sensitivities. They've got such radiant ability to notice and feel all these things, and they will shine a light on all parts of us men. It's just their job to do that. And we've got to look at all those aspects of ourselves where we are just so restricted, where we can't express ourselves, where we can't meet them in their pain. All these aspects. And it's all about the heart. It's all about getting out of this, which we have just been programmed to be in, to survive and to fight and to provide. And it's about coming more into our truth here, which is about listening and learning to connect with all these parts of the heart. This is really where my passion and my love and the journey I've been on for 2 decades now is around this opening of the heart and this closed inability to feel. And I know, and one notices it in relationship over and over and over again. I noticed it with my daughters. I noticed it with my wife. This constant wow, that was wrong. That was horrible. That was lacking. That was.
Absolutely. And as I'm taking sides here, but is it any wonder really that 73% of divorces are filed by women? And the guys listening to this will be, some will be going, absolutely, Sam. I guess the vast majority will be like, that sounds really scary. How would I even start? How do I even go there? I know that's what my wife wants. I know that's what my partner wants. And that's what my future partner wants. But how do I do it? How did you start? And what tools and modalities have you used together?
I think the first thing you do is just admit you need help. It's like whether you're an alcoholic, whether you're anything. The first step is admitting, help me. I need help. And so for me, when I cried that out to my mother, probably several people, but really ultimately to myself, it was the penny dropped about what success was going to be for me. It was about redefining. Like I felt so at odds with the world. I felt so disconnected, like I was being throttled. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to redefine success. All the men in my lineage have been about, it's been about money, it's been about work, and it's been about providing, right? And I had this wealth. I was fortunate enough to have this wealth, but I thought, okay, and I'd been angry about all of that wealth, but I thought, okay, I need to turn this around. I've got this wealth. How am I going to use this? And I decided, and it was pretty much one day I decided, and I wrote it on a big whiteboard, I'm going to redefine success. And success for me is going to be learning to live in this body and be delighted by me and my place on planet Earth in this short window we have. And that is going to mean opening my heart and connecting to more and more love and noticing all the blocks I have to love myself, first and foremost. And then when I've done that, I will then be able to love more and more from that platform of, love for self and all these aspects that I've hidden away and banished and playing small.
Yeah, it's beautifully put. Not so many men can talk to that, self-love part. And part of that journey is that self-awareness, right? That's what I sense is the start of most men's journeys. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably there already. What was the next step from self-awareness when you became aware to writing down that journey that you wanted to go on in life? What were the practical steps that you took? What actually supported you? What were the tools?
It was really about noticing what the trigger was, the main trigger, either in my relationship or something I was feeling a lack of. What was the main? It wasn't like they were all suddenly there. It was like I would be feeling something or I'd notice a trigger. And I'd just get curious about that, what that might be. And it would have been a feeling or something. And then a willingness to speak to someone, going and recognizing I needed to get a counselor, or but that might have been just speaking to a friend first of all. Or it might have been someone recommending a book, great teachings, and I'd suddenly read something and go, wow, that really resonates. I think that what I noticed, that when you're willing to open up, the universe wants to support you and help you. So it will actually send you. There's a wonderful phrase, when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And that really blew me away when I heard that, because actually for a couple of years before that, I was amazed that people were coming to help me, or a book would come and help me, or I'd open something and it would just say the right passage. And I suddenly saw that there was support out there. It was almost magical how that would come. But so I think it was just one step at a time, and being willing to say I need help and open my voice.
Yeah. And then it came. You say there are so many teachers from so many different modalities. It's like, start taking a pick.
Yeah. Where am I? Who am I again?
So you just mentioned how important it was to ask for help and ask for support on that journey.
And you've been talking about how supported you felt by some friends and how abandoned you felt by others, if you like, in this journey. Talk to that a little bit.
Well, I think my really good mates from when I was leaving school age, or maybe 17 onwards, when I was pretty lost, was actually I did have a really supportive, wonderful bunch of mates around me. They were life affirming. They laughed a lot. They were a fun bunch. And I came out of Stowe very lost, with really nothing. And there was a particular two twins, actually, two identical twins, Ollie and Hugo, who just picked me up and sort of brought me into their gang. And they were wonderfully sort of confident, and they enjoyed life. But there was a lot of the banter. I suppose we quite enjoyed taking each other down, or did I enjoy taking them down? I don't know. But they enjoyed taking me down a bit. And it's all kind of light. It wasn't anything, I don't think it was necessarily anything too, it was good stuff. I needed to laugh. I needed to make light of it all. I needed to dance and dress up, and I needed to take drugs and goodness knows what else, and lose myself and play and just slightly get out of my mind. And that really helped me to get out of my mind and get out more into my body and just get out of all these ideas. It's just been interesting from a friend's point of view. actually just recently recognizing actually what does support me, who really do support me, and what that looks like now as I come more into this slightly abandoned adult, which I think I've really fought with for quite a long time, and fairly recently just reclaimed. And I think there is a cry from my integrated self for actually really raising my game, and what that looks like in terms of friends and friendship and those people who lift me, who really lift me. And actually, if some of my really dear old friends aren't lifting me, to speak that out to them in a gentle way and speak into it. Because I think the banter is great, and I think going back to all of that is wonderful, and I wouldn't want to stop that for a second. But it is just really interesting to notice actually who supports the new me, this integrated me from all this work I've done, this, and who actually is still playing into that old script, or how am I allowing that to be played into that old script of not good enough, lack, all of that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. It's the journey, and everyone's on a different journey and a different timeline. We're talking about the second part of life. People are definitely coming into that at different points, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's never too late. I mean, that's the amazing thing with this work, and why I love supporting people now and really talking about this more and more. It doesn't matter when even my mother, who's nearly 80, I have this incredible dialogue with her, and even more so recently as I step more into my truth, my voice, which is really emerging in this last 6 months. Suddenly I've started to speak that to my mother, and it's illuminating a whole nother level of truth for her, and it's awakening her. And she said to me just last week, she said, I don't know where all this energy is coming from. I feel like I've got a whole new lease of life coming through me. And she hasn't been feeling that for about 2 years. And interestingly, in parallel with me too, in the last couple of years, and my expressing this, it's like it's we're connected, and she's illuminating now. It's really interesting, and I'm seeing how the truth sets you free, and it sets other people free.
Beautiful. I'm getting involved with some of the personal development work I did as well. It brought a completely new level and new dynamic to the family, actually. So yeah, it's wonderful to do it if your parents are open to it. As you say, it's just never too late. And that, saying that to guys in their 40s and 50s who turn around to me and often open up about the lack of purpose in their life, and say, look, I've been successful. I've got, got the house, kids are in good schools, got a car, job stable, but underneath it all, I feel utterly empty. It's sort of gutted. Absolutely gutted.
I relate to that. I had that too.
Tell us about that.
Well, I had this amazing house, the big 14th century old monastic building, incredible, romantic, amazing place. We had some land, ponds, and we had a swimming pool. It was an absolutely idyllic place. I had a successful photography business. I was, that was all going well. We were ticking all these boxes. I was married to this beautiful woman. I had these 3 children, all healthy. My parents were supporting, the eldest with education things. There was a lot of support around. It was all like we were ticking all these boxes. And I felt utterly lost. Completely lost in it. One of the things that being a photographer has really taught me, because I've traveled a lot, is I've been to some of the poorest communities in the world, and I see a richness there that is so devoid from the world that I was raised in, where grandparents didn't get involved, and the community was completely lacking, and there was ridicule, and I was made to feel small, and it was just like no rites of passage, none of this. And I spent time in tribes. I've spent time in some of the poorer places, and that there is grandparents coming together and community and laughter and support. And there's hardship. I get all of that, but actually I see that there's a perspective shift. If there are those people who see they have very little, but are able just to feel utterly rich because they're grateful, because they feel love on a whole another level. And it was such a, and I obviously, when I had all of that, I was like, I harked back to that. I was like, we've got to simplify life. We've got to shed. We've got to get out of this, because this is going to destroy us. So I surprised my wife with a ticket to actually go traveling. And we took the kids out of school and we just decided to pull the ripcord. We had to go. We had to get out. And my father was living next to me at the time, and it was quite hard to say to him, look, we have to escape this. We've got to go for a little while. We don't know when we'll be back. And actually it was one of the greatest things we did, and we simplified, and the rucks, it got down to simpler and simpler stuff we were carrying. And we just got down to the kids were pretty much naked by the end of it in Central America running around. We were barefoot and we'd never felt more sort of free and happy just coming back. And Susie and I weren't in a very good place. We had to get some support, which we found. But it was going to be make or break for us.
That is the bravery and the courage, because a lot of people then may listen to go, Sam, well, yeah, you escaped, mate, but you ended up in a divorce. So that's the terrifying thing. The change is the terrifying thing. The house, the family, the schooling, the job, the income, all of it's there. But you've just told a story where your out was to go traveling to change things up, and you ended up in divorce. What's that given you today that you didn't have then? What's the overriding positive message that can come out of that?
Well, the divorce was 7 years after that. So I often see our life is very much in 7 years segments. I've always seen that's how my life pans out. But it was the paradigm shift. I had to get out of that world where I wasn't being truthful. There was a couple of big secrets that I kept from Susie. There was various others, there was underlying. The truth wasn't being told, and we didn't know how to speak to each other in truth. We didn't know how to express our emotions. We didn't feel safe to express our truth. That's why we went. And I said, well, we've got to put all this behind us, and we've just got to go out into nature and the wilds and indigenous communities and just simplify and allow that truth to come out. And amazing, this mentor, teacher, guide, this shaman we discovered in Guatemala. I was like, wow, here's the man we've been waiting for. And these truths, I decided I was going to lay everything out on the table because it was going to be make or break. So I said, I'm sick of this little boy who is afraid to speak his truth. This is the truth, all of it. I laid it out. Certain pieces didn't go down very well. But in that truth, I decided then I couldn't carry on living the way I was, not expressing my truth, and hiding like this. I couldn't be with this woman for the next 7 years, hiding like this. I was going to suffocate myself. I was already suffocated. I was going to suffocate her. So I thought it was far better to say everything and then leave it to her to make that decision whether she wanted to stay with me or not. And she had every right to leave me, but she decided to stay with me. And we did some deep work after that for the next 7 years. But I think really she didn't feel safe. She didn't feel safe before. I think it was even more alarming for her after that. And it got to a place where I just, I was so cut down and realized that I was actually, we were done. We were absolutely done. And she was done.
Yeah. Thank you for going there. And thank you to your family for being open to being talked about as well, because it gives so much richness and wisdom and support to others to hear a man like you opening up like this, because it's just honoring you and Susie, because it's really important. You eventually get divorced. So my question to the guy who's same age as you, working a high intensity job, sees a lot of what you're saying in himself, and he is paralyzed by, well, what if I lose her? What if I lose everything? What would you say to that? How have you ended up now? How do you feel now?
I feel like I've been truthful, and no matter how much pain I've been through and all of that, it's like it always passes, and then I've stepped into more of my truth. I've stepped into the truth. That's all it's been about. And no matter how hard that is, I recognize I would rather that truth emerge and my life will evolve into whatever that's going to be than veneer over for the rest of this life. I see so many people just veneering over, and they get to 80, 90, and they just haven't lived the fullness of expression, the fullness of truth. It rather feels sort of safe and lukewarm for the rest of their life, than feel all of this, the possibility of actually what we get to feel and express. And there's so much creativity in all of that. So much more love. There's so much more. It's such a richer teaching for our children to show them those levels of expressions and love. So I know it's not easy. I know it's not like better the devil you know, right?
And yeah, there can be, if there's a understanding of growth between the couple, it can also be an extraordinarily rich experience to grow together and to go there to these sort of pretty dark places together, to come through into the light. I think what I take from that is the fact is there is more love. So if you're not feeling love, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit there and, as you say, ride into the twilight of your life, feeling that you've sort of just patted around the edges of what love can feel like, or are you actually going to go after it? And that can be going after it with your partner as it.
And as you said, 75% of these women are filing for divorce. They probably aren't going to take you just staying stuck in that place
anymore. Like, genuinely, like the baby boom is,
because they're rising.
Yeah, right.
And they're finding their voice. They have been for quite a while. So just, these magnificent creatures are our greatest teachers. They are the ones who they want to bring the best out in us. That's what women do. They see our potential. That's what they fell in love with. They want to see our man step up, and they will push that because they can see the potential in you. And if we just stay like this, they're just eventually going to go, this is a complete waste of time,
And that runs outside of just providing as well, right? Providing monetarily is one thing, but actually when it gets down to it, and like you did, get out into nature, get away from the rat race, what is it, and you ask them, what is it that you really want from me? It's just pretty solid in general, isn't it? To be emotionally supported, to feel as though they've got a partner in love.
Yeah, and 75% of women want to feel more. They know there's more, and they want that. They want it for their children.
Yes.
They want it for themselves. And the old paradigm was these men who were providing, but not giving everything else. And quite frankly, we were in a period of time where people are waking up, and we're doing this healing work, and the cracks are starting to appear. And so it's about this self-love piece. You don't have to think about all of this as this huge thing. You think about it as one little voice, one small part of you that just might want to, just say help. And you can take one little candle to that and what that step might be, just one little action.
Love that. Yeah, it is that 1%. You don't have to move like you did, go to Central America, or like I did, move to Bali. It doesn't have to be that dramatic, right? There's actually communities, networks, people in the UK this is actually available here and now. It's not like it was even 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. There are options.
There are so many options, and it can help. Having one of my favorite phrases, the paradigm shift, it can help jumping out of everything for a week, 5 days. That's what I offered, and what I'm hoping to offer again later this year are these retreats predominantly for men, which is where you just get away from everything you come sit around fire, you connect to earth, water, we swim in the rivers, cold water swimming, but you're in a protected space with men, and you go on a little journey together. We do something physical in the day, and we come around the fire in the evening, and the men start to feel safe to open up in that. And it's very simple. That sometimes it is good to get out of the box. That's what I offer, and you do it with your men's groups. If we get with these containers to support the fellas, and it's the work that really ignites me. Because when the men show up to these things, when you see a man in these circles, I hold 2 or 3 spaces, and often it's the women there. But when the men show up, even the really tender ones who are absolutely have done none of this work, even more them, because it's like, wow, you've took the one step to be here. And it gives me goosebumps even talking about that. And they're usually the one who speaks at the very end. But when that voice comes through from the shadow, it's like everyone feels it.
Yeah, because it is like a boom. It's like, oh man, you've just opened the doors in such a positive way. I mean, it's such a gift to self, and it's such a gift to your partner and your probably most of all to your children.
To everyone around you as well. You know, it's what the women often say in these groups, are how they just like just want to honor the men who are showing up now. So we're not seeing enough of them, but they're starting to show up, and I've heard it over and over again, just for the men to be willing to do some of this and just to be here, just to hear us, just to be willing to sit with us here and then, you know, and to express. So
yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, lots of interesting topics covered. Is there one thing that you feel as though you haven't covered yet that you'd like to talk to? Not going more than more.
yeah, okay. All right, I'll just do this one last.
Shoot.
I think the one thing I'd like to finally speak about is this idea of work. And I really believe the inner work is fundamentally important, and especially now, right now, this time in life, because it's hard to do, and it's brave, and it's courageous, and it's not for the faint-hearted. But ultimately, it's about greater creativity. It's about greater opening. It's about unlocking our truths and our listening to all aspects of ourselves, which ultimately brings us more into self-love, a love for life, which brings greater energy, greater joy, greater frequency, just more delight, more love, more everything. And it's like, why wouldn't you want that? Like, why would you not want that? So let's try and get out of these stuck grooves that us fellas are all on, which is just small and playing safe. And it's great the work you're doing and providing and all that, absolutely fundamentally important. But it makes space for some of this work. Find a mentor, a guide, a coach, a friend, a book, whatever it may be, one step, and just get on that path, because it has the capacity to bring so much love, you know, for yourself and for life, and certainly for the second phase of life. I think it's really, really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The world 40 years ago that we got, well, 40, 50 years ago that we got brought into is a very different world to what it is now. The young want a completely different emotional landscape. And I just sense if we don't do this work, if men don't do this work, that they will feel as though their children leave them behind. And their children's children will leave them behind. And the people that I talk to of a certain generation is like, I just don't understand these kids nowadays. That's the part that I don't. That's the part that I am determined to be available to speak to. You know, not understanding the latest AI code or whatever it's going to be when I'm 75, but understanding them on an emotional level and really being able to be there, not just as a, you know, as a grandparent, but as a mentor.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, because if we do this work now, if we just do this little bit of work now, it has the capacity to change generations. The reason I'm so passionate about this is because I've come from a very, very dark place and a very stuck, desperate place, right? I really have. And I have something inside called me, and I've done some of this work, and I've found the teachers and the guys and the support, and it is just such an incredible path to take and journey to take. So that's why I guess I'm just very passionate about it and to support the fellas.
Yeah, absolutely. From our greatest pain comes our greatest passion and our greatest purpose. And that, when I think a lot of men don't sense that great pain because it is numbed, my experience shows me that when men open up, there is pain. There's pain to deal with. That's just part of the human journey. The point being is that we've created a world in which it's okay to be okay. You even hear that, saying, it's okay to be okay. You've got a 1 in 4 trillion chance of being here. You've got to be fucking awesome.
That's it.
It's not okay to be okay. Don't be afraid to give up good for great. I mean, and that's the moral of the story that I've heard from you, is that whilst you just did talk to your dark times, as someone on the outside, your life looked good. You had the car, I don't know if you had the car, actually, but you had the house, you had the wife, you had the kids, you had the swimming pool, and you gave that up in the pursuit of greatness. And it's so admirable. I think the last thing is, and in that sense is, and as a sort of final wrap up, is what does privilege now mean to you?
Well, privilege now means to me what you really just spoke into. That we get an opportunity, one brief glimpse at this life, to feel it all, to express it all, to meet these untapped parts of us, to try and get back to that childlike state of awe, but with this kind of reparenting model within us, so the integrated, so connecting more to our spirit, to our adult, to our child, to our body, to just keep meeting these places, to keep illuminating, because it's such a privilege to get to feel it all, not just this narrow little idea of which is so safe. The privilege is to get to feel all of this, to experience all this illuminating, radiant, masculine warrior, feminine heart, radiance. This is what we're here to do, is to bust this old stuff and come to see how, what a blessing it is to be on this ball in space, floating around in the, and we get, every day we get to wake up and go, it's a chance to start again. We're still alive. We get to try and come into more love again today, more beautiful expression, more freedom, more, radiance, more aliveness, more, less stuckness, less anxiety, less, whatever it is we're feeling, but even all those, it's like okay to feel those things too. Like I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling anxious. It's just a voice in us. It's a part of us. So just feeling all of it and learning to come into relationship with ourselves and others and this great planet. I mean,
Amen.
Amen, brother.
Sam Pelly, you've been a legend. Thanks, Fane.
Thanks for having me, Pete.